Oh my goodness, man, it's already 4 p.m. Where's the gosh darn Vancouver Canucks announcement of the promotion of Ryan Johnson and the Sedins? Don't tell me there's a new frontrunner in all this, is what Rob Williams was saying back before lunchtime. And now it's been 4 hours, we still haven't had the announcement. You know what's gonna happen? This video is gonna go up on YouTube, and then the Canucks are going to make their announcement. But with that said, we have a number of Vancouver Canucks related notes to dive into today. From the supposed reporting that Vancouver may have been lowballing Evan Gold, to what Max Sasson had to say on Donnie and Dolly regarding the state of the Vancouver Canucks locker room. Lots to dive into. We'll get into it here in this video commentary, but I wanted to start things out by reading this tweet from Sapster that has some info from Adam Wild, SDPN guy, obviously an Ontario guy. Adam Wild reported on the Steve Dangle podcast that he was told by multiple sources that Evan Gold was offered the GM position, but was lowballed below the $1,750,000 range. Wild also stated the Canucks do not have the same R&D, analytics, and computing systems for prospects and current players as most of the league. Later on, he mentioned how the future buyout of Paolo Aquilini may have affected this. If this is even remotely close to true, then holy crap, man, what a joke. Now, I think Evan Gold being offered something in this dollar amount range is kind of a slap in the face, especially when you consider some of the other people in the Canucks organization that are making certain amounts of money. I think the assistant coach is making $2 million, something like that, for the general manager to have gotten offered less than that. Obviously, that sets quite the standard, doesn't it? Mike in the Okanagan said $250K to $500K has zero effect on Paolo's buyout. That's ridiculous. I do find it believable they discussed only $1 million. I think once the Sedins agreed, that killed it for Gold. I'm not sure a formal offer was ever made. Offering less than $750,000 to a GM when your assistant coach, there you go, is making $2 million. This would have been the savings of close to $2.25 million total for Gold alone, assuming RJ took less than $750,000, which was offered to Gold. Here's a tweet from Brooke Ward that I think sums it up pretty nicely. Ryan Johnson, the GM? Whatever. But if, and I repeat, if, the Canucks actually preferred Evan Gold but passed on him for financial reasons only, that's unforgivable. Now, there was reporting that apparently once the Sedins came into the picture, they wanted Ryan Johnson since they work well with him. If that actually is the truth, and the Sedins had a say in preferring Johnson over Gold, which by all accounts seems to have been a popular sentiment from the very beginning. Jim Rutherford wanted Ryan Johnson after all. Then it seems like the Canucks did this entire thing just for nothing, really. But you know what they say, right? As long as you leave no stone unturned, that's the best scenario after all. It's just, I think a lot of Canucks fans, they really fell in love with the idea of Evan Gold, a guy who is a pristine thinker, in the words of Jason Bruff. Now, let's go out there and talk about some of the other Vancouver Canucks-related notes in today's news cycle, because Donnie and Dolly had a really interesting interview with Max Sasson on their show earlier today. And Sasson had a pretty interesting set of comments in regards to the locker room and the locker room culture. Take a look at this. Adam Kierszenblat spoke about how Canucks forward on Donnie and Dolly, Max Sasson, was asked about the change in the locker room culture near the end of the year. Here's what he had to say. In Abbotsford 2 years ago, when we won, I saw what a winning locker room and a winning vibe and culture can do for a team. I think the people that roll their eyes about it, you know, I don't care if it's going to your job in the office or going to the hockey rink, you want to go in there with a smile and comfortability of being able to be yourself. Having people around you that want you to succeed and you want them to succeed. I don't think we had that for my first year and a half in Vancouver. I think just at the end, it was just great to see how tight the locker room got and how everyone kind of put their egos aside. Oh, man. It's talking about egos here, eh? Just allowed everyone to be themselves. I think you started seeing some guys really step up their play. I think because they weren't thinking about this or I can do that. You know, being judged or whatever. So I always think it's huge. I think the leaders, obviously, the veterans, they did a great job. And I also will say a lot of the young guys, even younger than me, everyone kind of stepped up and started pulling the rope, which is exciting for the future. Did Max Sasson really go out there and imply that before last year and a half, the Canucks locker room was a little tight and guys had egos? Oh boy. This definitely is going to feed a certain narrative about certain players that were in and around the Canucks locker room over the past few months, and I just wonder what the response is going to be over here. As things progressed and Quinn was moved on, it felt like the beginning of a new chapter, I'd say, for a lot of guys. Great read, and I love Sasson as a player. Pretty telling comments from Max. How toxic were things in that locker room? Quinn Hughes was maybe the best player in team history, but maybe the worst captain. Nuck0 said Hughes and Garland were massive locker room cancers, which checks out with everything that this Twitter user has been tweeting out over the past few months. There also were some comments made by Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast about the Vancouver Canucks and their front office. There's a lot of info over here when it comes to the Sedins and Ryan Johnson and how Ryan Johnson was offered the job on Monday. I mean, there's a lot to dive into here. I wanted to focus more so on the Mean Girls stuff, though. Taj with this tweet, Sasson talking about how the room wasn't the best for his first 1.5 years. He mentions how it improved and people could start being themselves and don't have to worry about being judged. Man, the Canucks went full Mean Girls. Just amazing. Just saying. There was always one person on here who tried to tell people Garland was a little POS, even though he was every fan's darling. Fantastic hockey player, but I would never want him in the locker room, LOL. Ha. Ha ha ha. With that said, I want you to let me know how your thoughts are on this Wednesday afternoon. It is hump day after all. How do you feel about this Vancouver Evan Gold stuff going on? How do you feel about the conversation that Vancouver may have actually lowballed Gold in their GM offerings and potentially went out there and decided against Gold once the Sedins got involved? There are a number of things that you can say play into it, but hey, Rick Dhaliwal on Donnie and Dolly, he went out there and said that the Vancouver Canucks GM job, apparently it's not all too expensive. It's not paying much. Economics played a role here. On Donnie and Dolly, they said that, then Donnie then replied, so they got a cheaper alternative? Both guys would have been rookie GMs. Take that however you want. So, how do you feel about the Evan Gold update? How do you feel about Max Sasson speaking out about the status of the Canucks locker room and how guys are not afraid to be themselves anymore? Talk to me in the comments. How do you feel about the vibes? Where do you think this is going to go over the next little while? And when are the Canucks going to make that gosh darn announcement? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.